So yesterday, I attended in person the trial of the nurse Lucy Letby at Manchester Crown Court. Today's video is going to be very similar to the previous ones. We're going to cover the cross-examination in court from June the 9th. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be releasing two separate videos. One video is going to be the cross-examination in its entirety from child A to Q. That's going to be round about a 3-hour video, I'd imagine. And then separate to that, I'm going to be making a video discussing some of my experiences having sat there in the court yesterday and witnessing firsthand Lucy Letby's last day under cross-examination. Not only that, I'll also be able to expand on some of the points which I'm going to mention in this particular video. Now, before we get into the cross-examination from June the 9th, if you are interested in the case of Lucy Letby and you wish to keep up to date with all of the comings and goings concerning her trial, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. Let's now continue with the cross-examination in court of Lucy Letby. Nicholas Johnson KC, on behalf of the prosecution, will now conclude his cross-examination now that each child has been dealt with. He said he's going to start with the text messages sent by Miss Letby after her removal from the neonatal unit. He will then move on to the gang of 4 doctors who she has claimed concocted the accusations against her. He will then move on to her searches for parents on Facebook, the circumstances in which she said she was isolated from friends, and finally her arrest. Mr. Johnson is asking Letby about June 27th, 2016. This followed the collapse of her final alleged victim, child Q, on June 25th. She was told by the manager of the unit not to come in for her shift. In messages from the time, she tells colleagues she is, quote, panicked. Nicholas Johnson: you knew that they were onto you, didn't you? Letby replies, no. Letby had messaged the doctor, quote, I can't talk about this now. She writes 12 minutes later, sorry, that was rude. Felt completely overwhelmed and panicked for a minute. We all worked tirelessly and did everything possible. I don't see how anyone can question that. I'm having a meltdown plus, but think that's what I need to do. Letby says she was having a, quote, dramatic meltdown. A message on Letby's phone at 11:29 p.m. included, quote, def datix ×2. Datix no bicarb, delay in IO access. Sign out FFP on Meditech and pink chart. Child O chart observations. Fluids in sluice. Sign drugs. Sign Curosoph out, traffic light drug compatibility. Letby said this was documents she had not yet completed for babies she had cared for. Mr. Johnson pulls up a datix form that Miss Letby recorded on the 30th of June 2016. On this form, she noted that a bung was open on one of the lines for a child. This is a child who is not part of this case. She said in a message to a colleague on the 5th of July that this could have caused an air embolism. Mr. Johnson says to Letby that after she was told not to come on shift on June 27th, she had her thinking cap on. She responds, no, that's what I found with this baby and felt it needed to be documented. Nicholas Johnson: you removed the port and covered it as a critical incident, didn't you? Letby replies, no. This is an insurance policy, so you could show the hospital was so lax. Letby responds, no. It was to cover for accidental air embolus. Letby replies, no. Letby is asked about the investigation and Letby being seconded to an office-based role. Letby messaged, quote, hoping to get as much info together as possible. If they have nothing or minimal on me, they'll look silly, not me. Did you think attack was the best form of defence? Letby replies, no, this was me responding to what was happening to me. The court is then shown a message from Lucy Letby regarding her union representative and the investigation process. This was made on August 8th and it states the following. Tony phoned he's going to speak to Karen and insist on the review being no later than first week of September, but said he definitely wouldn't advise pushing to get back on the unit until it's taken place. Asked about social things, and he said it's up to me but would advise against speaking with anyone in case any of them are involved with the review process. Thinks I should keep my head down and ride it out and can take further once over. Feel a bit like I'm being shoved in a corner and forgotten about by the trust. It's my life and career. Letby said she was feeling isolated and not able to speak to anybody on the unit. Mr. Johnson asked if that was really the case. Letby said she spoke to some friends who she was allowed to speak to about the details of the investigation. They were 2 nursing colleagues and a doctor. Letby's message, quote, "It's making me feel I should hide away by not speaking to anyone and going on for months, etc. I haven't done anything wrong." Nicholas Johnson: "You knew at this stage you were being blamed for the collapses and deaths of these children." Letby replies, "No." Mr. Johnson now asks about the gang of 4 consultants who Lucy Letby claimed were out to get her. Letby had previously said the 4 were Dr. Ravi Jairam, Dr. John Gibbs, Dr. Stephen Breary and one other doctor who had appointed blame to her to cover failings at the hospital. Mr. Johnson says he will go through the cases individually. He says for Child A, staffing levels were a shortcoming in administering a long line. For Child B, he said there was nothing. For Child C, there was nothing. For Child D, the antibiotics being delayed may have had an impact on her, but other than that, there was nothing. For Child E, the delay in giving him a blood transfusion. For Child F, there was nothing. For Child G, possibly the colleague had overfed the baby, but that was later retracted. Other than that, there was nothing. For Child H, the location of the chest drains may have had an influence. Other than that, there was nothing. For Child I, Ashley Hudson should have put her on a monitor, and that potentially Dr. Chang being called away was a factor. Other than that, there was nothing. For Child J, there was nothing. For Child K, there was nothing other than the ET tube may not have been secured. For Child L, there was nothing. For Child M, there was nothing. For Child N, there was nothing other than it was busy. For Child O, concerns raised by Sophie Ellis were dealt with on the charts. Other than that, there was nothing. For Child P, an issue with a chest drain. And for Child Q, there was nothing. Mr. Johnson says Letby has failed to identify, specifically, an issue with staffing levels for each of these individual cases. Letby says it was raised at times on the unit in relation to the overall care for babies. Mr. Johnson says the point of this case is to determine sabotage for the babies or naturally occurring deficiencies. He says Letby cannot give specifics. Letby responds, no. Mr. Johnson refers to, quote, suboptimal care for the babies from Letby's defence statement. You are raising the point, aren't you? Letby replies, yes, and you have been given an opportunity to speak about it. Mr. Johnson now turns to the Facebook searches Letby made for parents of children in the indictment. 3 searches are made for parents in quick succession. Mr. Johnson asks what the link is. Letby replies, they are babies that have died and been seriously unwell. Letby is asked about another series of searches for 3 parents' names. Letby replies, they are babies that had something significant happen to them and they were on my mind. Letby is asked why she didn't give that answer to the police. Letby replies, because I couldn't recall why I'd looked at some of them. Is that a true answer? Letby replies, yes. You were checking up on your victims. Letby responds, no, I look at a variety of parents. You were a killer who was looking at your victims, weren't you? Letby replies, no. Mr. Johnson asks about a series of other searches and says one of the parents' names has an unusual spelling. Letby is asked to spell that name out to the court. She does so incorrectly. Nicholas Johnson. You read it off a handover sheet, didn't you? Letby replies, no. Letby is asked about another series of searches, to which Letby replies, they were on my mind at the time. One search was made on Christmas Day for the mother of Child E and Child F, Nicholas Johnson. She was the person who caught you in the act. Letby replies, no, mother of Child E and Child F I had a good relationship with at the time. Mr. Johnson says Letby had given evidence surrounding her suspension from the unit in her first day of giving evidence to the defence. She had said she felt very isolated from my friends and family on the unit, and her mental health had deteriorated. She said, quote, "We were a very supportive unit. Regardless of whether we were personal friends, we were a supportive unit. At the time, the hospital advised me not to contact anyone on the unit. There were 2 or 3 friends I could contact, but not to contact anyone on the unit." Letby is asked if that was true and she abided by that. She replied, yes. Letby adds that did change as time went on. Letby has a document which she received from the prosecution this morning regarding her social life. Mr. Johnson says it, quote, disproves everything that Letby had said. Letby disagrees. You were telling the jury a sob story, that you had been cut off from your family, as you called them, on the unit. Letby disagrees. Were you looking for sympathy? Letby replies, yes, it was a very difficult time. Was it just a mistake? Letby replies, yes. The document includes photos of Letby's nights out and days out with colleagues. They include a trip to London with a male doctor, which Letby said only happened once. A social timeline is shown to the court, detailing meetings with the doctor in Hertford, Cheshire Oaks twice, and London between May and June 2017. Lucy Letby said in a message, quote, I'm near the park next to where you are. Let me know when you are finishing up and I'll see you outside. Doctor replies, OK, will do, see you soon, heart emoji. Lucy Letby, smiley face, heart emoji. Letby denies the doctor was her boyfriend. Letby agrees she had a very, very active social life. Letby says a future date on the Facebook diary for September 2017 was listed as a trip to London, but it had to cancel as the doctor had a medical appointment. She denies again he was her boyfriend. Nicholas Johnson. You have deliberately misled the jury about this background. Letby replies, no. You have also deliberately misled them about the circumstances of your arrest, haven't you? Letby replies, no. Letby says the police knocked on her door at 6 a.m. when they arrested her. She says she thought she had a nightie and a tracksuit and trainers. Mr. Johnson says Letby was taken away in a blue Lee Cooper leisure suit. Letby says she is not sure. Mr. Johnson says video footage can be played of her arrest. Letby agrees she was taken away in that leisure suit. For the 2019 arrest, Letby agrees she was not taken away in her pyjamas. So why did you lie to the jury about this? Letby replies, I don't know. Letby says it was the first arrest when she was taken away in her pyjamas. Nicholas Johnson. Do you want to watch the video? Letby does not respond. You are a very calculating woman, aren't you, Lucy Letby? Letby replies, no. You tell lies deliberately. And the reason you tell lies is to get sympathy and attention from people. Mr. Johnson says Letby was killing children to get attention. Letby replies, I didn't kill the children. You're getting quite a lot of attention now, aren't you? One of Letby's handwritten notes is shown to the court. It is the one which includes a draft sympathy message for Child O, Child P and another triplet. Mr. Johnson asks why a sympathy message has included the name of the surviving triplet as well as the names of Child O and Child P. Nicholas Johnson. Was that your objective? To kill all 3? Letby replies, no. Did that excite you? Letby replies, absolutely not. The quote, I am evil, I did this, end quote, handwritten note by Letby is shown to the court. Letby is asked about the notes. Nicholas Johnson. You had done nothing wrong? Letby replies, no. Why did you think you would not marry and have a family? Letby replies, because I was in the position that I was in and didn't think it would end. You had a good job working in the patient safety department at the Countess of Chester? Letby replies, well, that wasn't my choice. It was still a good job. Letby replies, good as in enjoyable. It was secure, with a secure employer. Letby replies, yes. Pays well? Yes, but not as much as nursing, but yes. Letby said there were times when she had good times during the time that she was under investigation. Mr. Johnson says this includes drinking fizz and days at the races. Mr. Johnson concludes with, you are a murderer. Letby replies, "I have not murdered or harmed any child."